Good Monday morning, everybody, and welcome back to No More Mondays podcast, the show where we believe you can have a thriving career, business, and life on your terms. And I am your host, Angie Callen. This episode is brought to you by The Modern Coach, the place where I am making sure that humans still matter. If you're ready to build that business, career, or life or team around your values, go check out themoderncoach.co/core values and lean in to what is most important to you. Now let's get on with the show. Sometimes you go to an event and you just find your person. For me, that was Jason Raitz. And the minute we shared a stage, locked eyes after we each talked, and basically decided we were the best communicators in the room. It's not ego, it's just connection, people. I promise. Jason is the founder of Speak with People, which right away should tell you everything you need to know about why he and I are basically kindred spirits. He is a dynamic speaker, he's an author, and he's the guy who is now helping financial professionals, advisors, and leaders learn how to connect with their customers, their teams, and I'm guessing probably even themselves. His message is simple but powerful. Average communication is costing us business, trust, relationships, and opportunities, and it is time to change that. Today's conversation is about human first connection. We all know how much I love humans. And how to speak like a real person, listen like you care, and actually build trust in this very noisy world. Jason, welcome to No More Mondays.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. And I've had a million guests on my podcast tell me that they love the introduction. I think everybody needs to get an introduction like you just gave me, because I'm sitting over here going, wow, this is quite a feeling. So thank you very much.
It's a good little warm up too. It's actually one of my favorite things. When I go onto a show and I don't get the read in, it feels a little bit like,
I know.
Well, there's a word I won't say on this show, but like it feels a little bit like it just went a little too far too fast. I like the preamble. Preamble is the word that we will use.
Right.
That we will use.
That's right. I love it. Oh, this is incredible.
Get this warmed up, and we're going to warm up more by just kicking right off with, I'm sure, what has either become your favorite or the most asked and therefore least desirable question you get. But what does it actually mean to speak with people and not at them?
Oh, it's so good that you brought that up. What's interesting is, when people hear the phrase speak with people, not at them, it all of a sudden starts to bring up either a person who, a former boss, somebody in their life who they plunk into each category. And so, we start to bring those up. The speak at, these are the people who suck the life out of you with their words, with their communication, with their body language, with their tone. They break connection with their communication. They speak out of fear or control. They have to get their opinion across, so they interrupt. And, this is the speaking at. On the flip side, the leaders who speak with people, these are the people who breathe life into you when you communicate. I mean, you have a conversation with them and you walk away going, what changed? Well, what changed was you had somebody who spoke life into you. And so, they use communication that builds trust, that builds connection. When you speak with someone, you remember the word communication actually is about connecting. Too often we think it's about informing, dumping, spewing. It's not. It's all about connecting. And so when we speak at people, we build a wall between us and them. And when we speak with people, we build a bridge. And that bridge is so strong, it can hold our connection for years to come. So that's the difference.
There's a couple things in there I really like. First of all, I think about this a little bit like the thing that we've heard a lot of times where it's most people listen to respond instead of listen to hear. And I think that's one thing that we're kind of encouraging here. But I really love if we want to get etymological here for a second. Oh, I actually said that word without tripping over my tongue.
So good.
I am impressed. It's going to be a good week if I've already made it that far on this Monday morning. But communication actually comes from the root word commune, not information, communication. And I think that is so interesting to think about how that can build the bridge. And I'm actually wondering, the trust word has already come out, which I think is fundamental to leadership and most of life today. And I'm wondering if, we're in this day and age of AI and digital disconnection, And I feel like this whole idea of being in community with each other via good communication is more important than ever. And I'm wondering what you've seen on that front.
Ooh, well, let's unpack
I
a
say that's
big.
that's a loaded question for 4 minutes into this thing, but hey, we're going there.
It's giant. I mean, it is absolutely true. Here's the reality. No, every leader says yes, communication is important. I personally, Dr. John Maxwell, right, the leadership expert, he says that leadership is influence, and so whether that's positive or negative influence, well, how does influence grow? I believe communication fuels your leadership. The healthier you communicate, the more your influence will grow. Now, your influence could be both positive or negative. We both know people, leaders, we've had bosses, probably people listening can go immediate to that person who was incredibly influential in a negative, fearful, controlling type way because their communication was so harsh and hard. And so I think in today's world with so much AI, so much digital communication, I mean, it is hard to turn on the comment section or look in a comment section in a Facebook group or, I mean, we've lost the ability to communicate in sane, healthy, constructive ways. And, we just kind of think it's no big deal because I think most people, we take our communication for granted. Most studies show we do it up to 90% of the day. And so for some of us, we're just like, I mean, I've been doing it this way my whole life. Why change now? Well, why change now? Because the world keeps adapting. And I think, especially what we teach with our clients, the healthier, the stronger, the more effective your communication is, it just gives you the competitive edge because there's so many competing, people out there trying to get the business or whatever it is, that when somebody comes around and can actually communicate in a way that hears someone, listens to someone, responds, asks powerful questions, catches the other person's story, remembers it, uh, they're going to be remembered. They're going to stay top of mind. And so I think that's why it's so important for leaders to lean in and to not take it for granted that, yes, even with all this technology, even with all the stuff that we have available, use it to help continue to improve your communication, but don't lose sight of the fact that it's still that one-on-one. It's so important.
I still remember when I first saw you. Oh, by the way, everyone, for those of you that have listened a lot, Jason is finally the last one of the Thing 2024 connections. It's taken this long to get him on here. We're almost a year out. However, we saved the best for last. But before we even talked to each other, I remember, for those of you listening out in podcast land and not watching visually, Jason has a shirt on that says "Speak with People," and "with" is in bright orange and "speak" in people's in white. And so I remember walking into a room and seeing your shirt, and I was like, oh, speak with people. It didn't even say "not at them," right? It didn't have the tagline. And I kind of knew immediately, oh, this is somebody who wants to make real connections, communicate clearly, communicate authentically. And I am wondering, in your opinion, what is keeping people from doing that? Why do so many people struggle to communicate in the format of the bridge versus the wall? Where are they getting it wrong?
Ooh, wow. Okay. First and foremost, we've convinced ourselves that our way of communication is the right way. So whether it's, well, I'm just introverted, I don't have what it takes to meet all those people in a room. My communication's fine. Whatever our excuse is, we've already made up our mind to where our communication is. And so I think first and foremost, many of us don't improve with our communication, or we don't connect because we haven't taken the steps to be able to do that. In my trainings for Speak with People, as I'm training financial professionals and salespeople, we operate under the premise that average client communication is costing you. And immediately people are like, oh, it's costing me business. Yes, but it's costing you likability. It's costing you client excitement. It's costing you referrals. It's costing you meetings. There's a whole list of what average communication costs you. And I like to say average communication makes you like an illusionist.
Or gives you average results at
Absolutely.
best.
And, like we talk about succeeding in all these other areas, but so often we don't do the hard evaluation to go, okay, what is it in me that's not communicating very well? What area, because it's so dang personal to who we are as a leader that we're like, oh, I don't know how many of your listeners public speak. I've been speaking in public since 98. Many, many years I spent just to students. And so if you really want to feel good about yourself as an adult, stand in front of 1,000 middle schoolers, because they'll tell you right away what they think of you. I mean, it's powerful. But when it comes to public speaking, sometimes we shy away as leaders asking for critique because it's so hard to be, to be told. It's the same way. Like if you're in the sales world, you spend a lot of time role playing. Let's role play, but we don't do that sometimes for other positions. And so when was the last time we legitimately asked somebody close to us, what's it like on the other side of me? I didn't craft that incredible question. Dr. Henry Cloud did. But what if you started with the people closest to you and say, okay, I'm not going to be defensive. I'm not going to cross my arms. I'm not going to have a scowl on my face, but just tell me, what's it like on the other side of me to receive my communication?
Do you maybe mean a little tiny word that starts with E that we are severely lacking in society today called empathy?
Empathy. Yes.
Walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. And I think you hit on a couple good things that we tend to be. Communication is one of these things where it is so personal to us that we therefore assume it is ingrained and too innate to change. And it feels too hurtful to even think about how we might do that, that we just root ourselves in expecting everyone else to change for us. And I guess there is it like this is relationships. They're all relationships. Yep. And if you think about like your marriages, this is probably very, very, very applicable place to think about like, I'm expecting my spouse to just communicate that way I need them to, but I also need the way they need to communicate them to. But that is like under a microscope version of what happens in a professional environment with all of the different relationship dynamics that are happening, and understanding how to come to the middle or how to find common ground and how to communicate in an effective way that motivates your people versus expecting them to just hop to in the old style of kind of autocratic leadership that is dying.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And what prevents us from continuing to grow? We kind of convince ourselves, hey, this is the way I do it. I think another thing, you bring up, we just haven't taken the time, to really dive into it. I like just before we were doing this recording, I was looking through some notes from a training I did with a team where I walked them through a with or at assessment. And so, it's really fascinating. If I ask my wife, hey, how do you think, how would you rate my listening ability? Her answer is going to be drastically different than mine. Cause I'm like,
this is a Jason brace yourself moment.
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. Because I'm like, I'm a communicator. Like, of course my listening is incredible. No, it's really not. And I came to that realization because I had a great guest on my podcast who does organizational modification behavior testing. And I was like, oh, wow, that sounds fancy. So he ran me through the test, and it came back that I'm a horrible listener. And I'm like, how am I?
Do as I say, not as I do, everyone. Do as I say, not as I do. Speak with people. See ya.
Yeah, I'm out. I mean, that was it. Like, how am I a horrible listener? And so he ran me through the reasons why. But a lot of times, I've never been sorry for I'm going to speak poorly about myself for a second. I don't recommend ever doing this, but I've just never been super strong in testing. I was never the person who scored high on tests, all of those type of skills. But on the communication side, that's kind of where I soared. Everybody wanted me to be on their presentation team, but the accountant team, probably not. But the reality is, my brain, especially in those relationship settings, what this test showed is it just worked really, really fast and I'm jumping ahead. Well, it's one thing for, my wife to say, hey, you really need to work on your communication. And I'm like, okay, I believe that. Okay, I'm going to work on it. But then you get this like, crazy giant test to go, yeah, this is where it's at.
Mm.
So I just think we're not taking those moments. We're not taking those steps to go, okay, I really do want to change. How can I be better at this? And so that's why like we offer a with or at assessment to be able to really open up, especially with because we really niche down to how do you communicate to your clients?
Yeah.
Because I think neurologically it's different because there's some sales that's there. We want to sign them. We want them to be,
there's kind of like a hierarchy in a way.
Yes.
Because they're buying from you.
Yes.
It's a weird hierarchy, but it is a communication situation.
Right. Because how I communicate to my kids or my neighbor, or it's different because then, all of a sudden when Dan calls me, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, it's Dan. Like, here we go.
Standing up a little more. Yeah.
That's why like we start all of our trainings at that place. And I can kind of feel some of the collective eye rolls in the room. Like, oh, here we go. But I'm just like, people, you've got to open this up. Now, with my audience, I dangle the carrot in front of them because our research shows that especially financial advisors, especially client-focused leaders, they're leaving money on the table and productivity hours if their communication is subpar. And so that's where we're able to go, hey, you're going to earn more. You're going to have more influence at work. I had a client that I coached for a while, Susan. I was coaching her. Her boss was like, hey, I believe Susan, you could be a public speaker. And Susan's like, why? And the boss saw something in Susan that was like, everybody loves you. And this, even people who don't want to speak, once that microphone's in your hand, for whatever reason, your leadership influence is just amplified. And so this boss wanted to, see Susan in a situation. So anyways, I walked Susan through this template that we have that helps people develop presentations and helps them kind of find their voice and speak with confidence and all those kind of things. And you would have thought that Susan was, literally falling apart before her first presentation, but she got through it. People loved it. And that just ignited something in her that, she had been doing her job for years. Incredible, faithful. Everybody could count on her. But now it took her leadership to a whole other level because she took that step to do something that was uncomfortable. Yeah. I think it's the same way with our communication. Finding out, am I an interrupter? Do I talk over people? We talk a lot about storytelling. God bless Donald Miller. I love I love storytelling, but I'm just as passionate about story catching. Am I listening so well that I'm hearing the stories that you're telling me and I'm lodging them in my brain and in my CRMs or however you track stories. So the next time I meet with my client or that person, I can say, Angie, how's the bears? It's bear season in those mountains.
We're not talking about Chicago, people. We're talking about the bears that have kept me up for the last 5 nights because it's almost hibernation season and they're hungry. But I like this kind of thought of the memorable bits, right? Because we think about storytelling. We don't necessarily think about how we tell stories well always. But here again, it comes down to hearing and receiving.
Right. And we don't, so often we think of this phrase, speak with people. Oh yeah, of course I speak with people. But we found there are 10 healthy communication behaviors that all go into this. This is a pathway. This is an every single day. You just continue. It's not like I just do one on two. Okay, Tuesdays, I'm going to tell a story. And then Wednesdays, no, this is something that you work on all the time. And we've seen this. You've coached, I don't know how many amazing leaders. When they learn how to elevate their communication, everything changes. They're asked to share more in team meetings. They're given more responsibility. The data shows that as well. Like they make more. It's amazing what happens when you lean into becoming and for me, I don't want to just be an effective communicator. So often people are like, just be effective. Yeah, I know a lot of really awful effective communicators that speak at people, that speak out of fear and control. They're effective.
Yes.
They get people to do what they want, but I want to be a healthy and effective. I don't want to communicate and drive fear into the people that I work with. I want to drive, this idea that, wait a minute, I can actually, I can share what I think. We're here on a team. So I could talk about communication all day long, but the powerful thing is when we take the steps to actually improve, pretty incredible things happen.
Okay, so let's give everybody a step or two they can do to improve. You keyed that up perfectly. What is maybe one or two of your top kind of favorite things that somebody out there can start doing today if they're like, okay, I hear these two standing on this little soapbox together. What can somebody out there do today to just take a step towards maybe being a more human, more authentic, more healthy and effective leader? What are a couple small things?
I love it. What I'll actually do is I'll challenge your listeners. I call it the with factor. The with factor. It's almost like I've done this before. The with factor, but the W is to work your voice. So many leaders, we try to be somebody that we're just not. And so for us at Speak with People, we've developed a framework called the Voice Framework. And especially as we speak with our clients or our colleagues, we haven't quite found our voice. How do we speak in this, with confidence, but with empathy? And so we run people through this framework to introduce to them, we think there are kind of these 5 different voice characteristics. And so you got to find your voice. So work your voice. And then, we talk about, hey, you've got to really, I'll give you just a couple of them. Turn questions into trust. Questions are, last weekend we had a big family wedding. So one of my wife's brothers was over. They have little kids. I've been out of little kid phase for a long time. My nephew asked about 1 million questions a second. Uncle Jason, why are you upstairs? Why are you wearing that black shirt? Uncle Jason, why are you doing that? I mean, it was like, holy cow. But questions are trust accelerators.
Yes, they are.
And so if you want to build influence with people, you ask incredible questions. Charles Duhigg in Super Communicators, highly recommend it. He says, don't ask people about the facts of their life. Ask them how they feel about the facts of their life. So, Jason, where'd you grow up? Detroit.
Absolute. Done.
Okay, we're done.
Period. End of statement.
Right. Jason, how do you feel about where you grew up? Oh, well, I feel very afraid. It was a very scary time in Detroit. I ran a lot. I hopped a lot of fences. I got chased by gangs. All true stories. That's how I feel.
You know what this makes me think of?
Uh-oh.
My friend Justin Schenk, who you need to meet. He is a former guest on this podcast, and my eye on his, said something at an event of his I went to, and it's be interested instead of interesting. And I think there is so much behind that, and that is exactly what you're talking about. Because, where are you from isn't really being interested. It's just cursory small talk. But it's funny, I am a former engineer who loves people, and I actually love to work a room. However, the way I work a room is avoiding talking about myself by asking tons of questions and being actually interested in people, because I don't really like small talk. And so by asking questions like that, it keeps me away from small talk and keeps me away from having to talk about myself. And it actually really does build rapport with people very quickly. It is a quick trust builder.
Yep. We actually, for the financial advisors we serve, we did this giant research over a couple of years to try to find the best questions. And so we developed, a lot of times we just wing it, right? But why don't we have a couple of like go-to questions? I run into people all the time. I used to be insanely extroverted. I used to love to walk into a room. Oh my gosh, look at all these people. Now at 50, I'm like, oh, okay, you can do it. Look at all these people. All right. But when I walk into the room and I have a couple of questions, and instead of like having to talk about myself, if I'm curious, those kind of things soar. And so, I'll learn so quick story. Last week, I'm at a credit union in Tampa. I'm doing a training. I'm in the lobby because at I mainly speak in a lot of financial firms and places. So there's lots of compliance with fiduciary stuff. And so some of the times I'm not allowed in the room, right? Because they're going over, all of their stuff. So I got to wait. So I'm in the lobby. So Jason, I wanted to sit in quiet and just get ready. But for whatever reason, there's this nagging voice that like, I got to talk to the receptionist. And so we just start having this conversation. And I find out all this stuff about her because I'm just asking these questions. So my talk that day at the training was about how to ask exceptional questions. And I was able to use that moment with Susie in the training where I'm like, this is, I had 17 minutes with Susie. This is what I learned about Susie. Husband died 20 years ago. She just lost her 28-year-old son. I went through this whole list and everyone's like,
some of them probably didn't even know this stuff.
They had no idea. A couple of them were like, who's Susie? I was like, the person who lets you in the building.
That you walk by 12 times a day between your office and the coffee.
But everybody, that's it. Everybody can ask great questions. So that would be another one, ask exceptional questions, and going back to AI, there's no reason not to be able to come up with exceptional questions anymore.
No, but here's the thing. I will make a friendly amendment. If you're going to ask exceptional questions, you must genuinely and authentically be curious to hear the answers.
Yes.
This is not asking exceptional questions for the sake of asking exceptional questions and looking like a smarty pants, which we do sometimes in interviews, by the way. But if you are actually
absolutely
trying to build connection with a human, especially in a sales environment, like actually care about the answer. That goes back to the, listen to hear and not just listen to respond. So that would be my friendly amendment to how exceptional questions actually work in your favor.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. We all, 25 years ago, I was that, my head was so large, I could barely fit through door frames because I thought I was such a big deal. I did not ask people questions. It was all selfish. I wanted them to know how great I was. That all changes as you get older. You fail a little bit, you realize, wait a minute, and watch Ted Lasso. I just rewatched it for, I don't know how many times. There's a great scene in season 1 with Ted and Rupert, the bad guy, where Ted is like, Rupert, you weren't curious. You didn't ask me any questions about my childhood. They're in this great club scene. It's just
a dart scene, right?
Oh, yeah. They're playing darts.
Yeah.
Just incredible. And so it's all the Zig Ziglar stuff. It's all the Dale Carnegie stuff. It's all the Jim Rohn stuff. It's all works though. When you legitimately want to see other people succeed and you're curious, you want to hear their stories. Oh, it's powerful.
So this is related, but maybe slightly an aside. What's your take on vulnerability in leadership? Because I think that plays a factor in how we build rapport and how we build a bridge instead of a wall. But I'm curious what your take on that is, and also where we find the line of the right level of vulnerability.
Whew, boy, that's powerful. My take is yes, leaders need to be. I think there's 5 levels to vulnerability, and I think we need to share level 1 and 2 with people that we don't know. Nothing, especially as a speaker, nothing gets people to lean in more than being vulnerable. My mom, who's a counselor, probably thinks I share the deeper levels too much on Facebook. But I think it all goes back to how healthy is your culture of your workplace. Mm-hmm. If you do not have a healthy culture, it's more toxic. I think you need to protect your vulnerability, because I've just been in workplaces where, you in those toxic, unhealthy places, you're vulnerable, and then the unhealthy leaders just eat on it like prey. But if you're in a healthy workplace, I just don't think you can go wrong with vulnerability. Now, level 4 and 5, I figured in a 5-point system, 3 was the Swedish spot.
if
That's
the
it.
culture supports it, right?
That's it. Yeah. So I think
Which,
absolutely.
tell me what that looks like. Because in my mind, I think it depends on the situation. But let's say you are the leader of a team. What is the difference between 3 and 4, 5?
Oh, yeah. I'll put it in. So I was coaching a young leader, and they came to a speaking engagement with me, and I don't know, 700-800 speaking engagements over however many years. Uh, every one of them, an amazing opportunity. When I was in my 20s, again, I thought it was the greatest thing ever, and so I thought, wow, this audience is really lucky; they're about to hear me. And I, you know, that day I flopped. It was my biggest audience yet. Everything went wrong that I, feared to go wrong. Anyways, I'm coaching this young leader. I bring him to an event with me. There's 500 leaders from this county. And he says to me afterwards, how in the world did you just get up and start sharing some of those stories? And you just started having a conversation with all 500 people like it's just one-on-one. And I'm like, well, you weren't with me 15 years ago when I flopped so hard. And I went through the story with him, and I was like, this is where I screwed up. This is where this is where I hit rock bottom. It's because I had those moments that I could get to that place. So I think level 3, I didn't share anything in there that was like, you know, um, I didn't, I think level 4 and 5 would be, uh, well, let, let's be vulnerable. Uh, I'm in a season of life right now, Angie, you know about this. I've just had some struggles over the last year. Like it has been a difficult year. And, I've been open about that. I don't with people I'm speaking to, or even you, I haven't shared like the level 5 of the depth of the crap, but I've been vulnerable enough to go to 3, touching on 4 to say it's a pretty tough season. Like this is a pretty tough season in the midst of some amazing things happening. So I think when it comes to vulnerability, you got to remember it's kind of your superpower. If you want people to trust you in such a unique, insane way, be vulnerable, but be vulnerable in a way that you're not the hero of the vulnerability. Because I've seen people do that all the time.
Mm. Yeah, or it starts to flip the script and get into like a guilt trip or
Yeah.
something like that. Or, I think of it as in a leadership environment, there is still a certain level of discretion that we have to exercise with sensitive information,
Yes.
or letting people see too much behind maybe how we're feeling about something to the point that it begins to like erode either their trust or respect for the position that we are in. And so I think it's a little bit of a delicate balance. But the big thing we haven't talked about is if you're stuck at 1, you are missing out on a little bit of the connection that you can create if you are willing to find that happy medium at 3.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you struggle with that, I've known some people who are like, "Ooh, I don't know if I could ever tell," I'm like, we've all failed at some point. And so instead of being under this illusion that we've never failed, look for ways that you can tell that story in a way, that points out, here's exactly what I learned, through that failure. It's powerful things
We
to do.
don't we do not fail, we learn. However, we have a really, really hard time, I think, in society today with healthy vulnerability because there is so much negativity out there that it feels like we sometimes can't share. And also feels like this, like a failure is such a bad word now. But most of the time we don't fail. We at the very, very least, we're learning, and that all goes forward into the next thing.
Yeah, and on social media, everything is, I looked at this uh another speaker on LinkedIn the other day, and I saw their post and they're like, I just signed 17 clients and it's my best month, and last month was even better. And I'm like, wow. Like we see only what people, the only positive they post. And so often we don't get people's, especially, for me, I'm 3 years into this business. I'll speak to leaders who've been doing it 8 years, 10 years, 15 years, and they're like, oh yeah, year 3 was hell. But we don't talk about that. We're just
Right.
like,
But
it's the
don't you wish
greatest.
people talked about that? Because then misery would have a little company.
Right. And so I've just like, especially if people follow me on my Facebook page, I'm just trying to be like, let me be honest with you. This is starting something and getting something off the ground is terribly hard. And so there are incredible highs, but there's incredible lows, and I'm going to bring you along on the journey. It's not all going to work out. Not all my ideas work out, but I'm going to keep moving forward and trying to do the absolute best I can. And I think that's helpful. So I think some people are under this illusion that's like, I can never share anything that didn't go right. Actually, you're really like holding the people around you back because, when you can use those life stories to help teach a lesson, powerful things happen.
Here come two cliche statements. One's my own and one I don't know where it comes from. I have always said there is no better exploration into self-discovery than entrepreneurship, than building and growing something. And it is so, so true because it reveals all of the good, the bad, and the ugly about you. And on that note, you have to be very, very cautious of the comparison syndrome because we all know comparison is the thief of joy. And especially in the day of the day and age of social media, we're not seeing the full picture. We're only seeing the highlight reels. So if you're out there comparing yourself to the highlight reels, guess how it's going to feel?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I think sometimes people, they want to communicate only the mountaintop experiences, so
Yes.
A couple weeks ago, I had a chance to speak at a national conference and 400 people in a room. And they all walked away with, sorry, shameless plug, my brand new resource, the Client Communication
Yes, we're going to talk about that in a second. Great cue.
But tomorrow I'm speaking at a lunch for the American Association of Business Women in Lakeland, Florida, and there'll be maybe 30 people in the room. I'm going to bring the same amount of energy. I'm going to be I'm going to post about it like at the same level. And so, I just think, especially when we communicate, how we do that, be vulnerable, be empathetic, lean into it and, communicate in a way that brings people along with you, and you're going to experience some pretty powerful things.
And the way I think I'll wrap that all up is you just said something that made me think of something important to me. And I think you, based on what I know about you, is I love the idea of bringing people with you. And whether you're in a room of 3,000 or 300 or 30, you are still in a room with other people.
Yep.
Be with them, be present to them, because I have a feeling you and I both kind of grew up in that same, everyone is equal. And everyone deserves to be treated the same. And I think the same goes with the clients that pay you $30 and the client that makes 3,000. Now, do they get higher access and things like that? Yeah. But from a human to human and a communication level, there is an authentic and genuine interest in knowing each other and treating people that way. So
Absolutely.
You mentioned your playbook, which is one of the many. I mean, this guy, you think I can churn out content, y'all? This guy has got my number. I would love to talk about Speak with People, the business, for just a second, because you've got a podcast, you've got your speaker stuff, you've got the training stuff, you've got the playbook. How do people find you and all of the good things that you have out there?
Absolutely. Well, speakwithpeople.com is the best place to go to. You can, we have a resource page, speakwithpeople.com/resources. And there's all of our free stuff. So you can sign up for our weekly communication guide email. So every week you get a tip, you get some practical steps to improve. We have a blog post every single week. We air 2 episodes in our podcast every single week where we interview incredible leaders from around the world. And we learn how we can fuel our leadership by improving our communication. And if you specifically work with clients, speakwithpeople.com/client playbook, you can access this resource. And basically, it's a comprehensive guide to take you from being an average client communicator to an exceptional, building trust quicker, winning referrals faster, and really growing your business in a way that builds trust because your communication just speaks so clearly. So that's where all of all of our stuff's at. You can find Speak with People on all the social media sites as well.
We will link to all of it in the show notes, of course. And for everybody out there, I'm sad that we have to end this episode because I would like to hang out for 4 days and just chat about all of this stuff because this is one of my favorite topics as well. No one should be shocked by that. But kind of in summary, I want you all to think about, I'm going to put this little seed there for you. Is the big thing here is communication isn't just a skill. And I think for a long time we thought of it as the, excellent written and verbal communication skills, but really it's a signal, and it tells people if they can feel safe with you. It tells them if they matter and if you think they matter. It helps them feel and be seen and heard. And whether you are leading a team, you're building a business, you're having a Monday morning meeting, or you're just trying to get through life with your family, how you speak matters just as much, maybe if not more, as what you say. And Jason Raitz has been here to reinforce and remind us all of how important communication is as a connection tool.
It's a great way to finish it up. That's powerful.
It's a good little TLDR, right? Well, I'm going to get one little last tidbit out of you. So for everybody out there listening, there's somebody there going, oh, these two just made me feel really, really bad, and I'm an awful communicator. Somebody out there who doesn't think they're a great communicator, what would you say to them?
Oh, you're much better than you think you are. Because we're always so much more critical about everything about us. Oh, I don't like the way my voice sounds. I don't like the way I look. I don't like this. You're much better than you think you are. And so lean into it. Look for different ways every single day to just continue to improve. One of the best compliments that guests on my podcast give me is we'll get done with the episode and they'll say, I just feel like I've known you forever. That's what I want my communication to be able to do, to just connect so purely with people. So just lean into it and look for ways to continue to improve, and you will.
And don't be afraid to be known.
Oh, I love that.
There you go. Jason Raitz, Speak with People, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today.
Angie, thank you. Really appreciate it.
I love these conversations, especially when they are with somebody that shares so many of the same perspectives and adventures as I do. I am Angie Callen, and this has been another edition of No More Mondays. One big thank you again to Jason Raitz for showing us that communication isn't just about being perfect or powerful. It is about being present and human. If you haven't heard, there are even more No More Mondays available to you. Every week, you can pick up midweek momentum on Wednesday afternoon as a little push through the rest of your week. And in the meantime, this is Angie Callen. I'll catch you next week for another episode of No More Mondays podcast.